Yeah, we've had a good preseason camp. I mean, I think that everyone, I've never been around one that's perfect, either through injuries or weather or whatever. But this one was a really good one. I feel like our team kind of came back. They were well prepared from the summer, and so we weren't having to do a lot of conditioning. We're relatively healthy right now, which is obviously a good thing. Yeah, it was a physical camp. I think that our players showed the maturity that I kind of expected this group. This is a relatively mature group, I think, especially on defense, and they came back and kind of showed that maturity. And quite honestly, even some of the leadership. And that's one of the things I thought we were kind of missing a little bit out of last year, but this senior class has really taken over the team, and pleased with where we're at. Obviously, with our first opponent against Georgia, the hostile environment. I don't worry about, again, our older players because they've been in these type of venues an awful lot, and and have had marginal success in those games, and so they have those experiences. Some of our younger players that haven't played before, still kind of anxious to see how they handle the venue and the crowd and all that type of thing. We've tried to put them in those situations, but you really never know until game day exactly how they're going to respond to that.
Thank you, Coach. Our first questions come from Monroe, Louisiana. Caller, please identify yourself and go ahead.
Hey, Coach. It's Adam here in Monroe. How are you doing?
I'm good, Adam. Thanks.
Was just kind of curious as far as you guys are getting ready to get the day off and then get to practice tomorrow. You're going to start preparation and everything. Just how is game week different now that that you're not in camp anymore? You had last week, but just being in the game setting, how does the focus change the practice?
Well, we slowly try to ramp it up. As you mentioned, we started working on Georgia last week, and it was pretty low key. We didn't talk much about the game. We just talked about the different looks that you're going to get. I think it's if you start talking about the game too early, then consequently you ramp up too early, and you really want this to kind of come to a crescendo. And one of the things you want to come to a crescendo on game day with preseason camp and the number of practices that you get and all that type of thing. We'll slowly build and ramp this thing up. That's why we took off today, and we'll start kind of ramping up the hey, it's just around the corner now, that type of thing as the week progresses, and that way hopefully emotionally you're ready to play well. We've tended to play pretty well, I think, early in the season, not just here, but even when I was at Army and Illinois State. And I think a lot of it kind of revolves around kind of our checklist anyway that we kind of go through to make sure that the team sees all the situations and is prepared. And then I think we've done a pretty good job of handling things emotionally and early on in terms of how we build up to it.
Okay, as far as your checklist, you mentioned situations. Is it just practice and stuff you're going to see during the game, or what all falls on that checklist?
No, it revolves around everything that can happen in college football. Our mock game that we had the other night was good 2 hours and 15 minutes long in relation to all the different things that can happen in the kicking game on offense and defense. Not everything's going to go great, and responding rather than reacting to things going badly, and then trying to rally up and so it basically kind of covers all the situations that I've encountered over a period of time, and and making sure that if that situation arises, it might not be in the first game, it might not even happen all year long. There are certain things that we have practiced before that our kids understand that that we've never had to use here, but if they come up, we want to have a plan in place, and so it's basically kind of covering all those things.
Now looking at how the week go, you slowly started talking about Georgia last week. Was that just last week? Would it fair to say more of a kind of a basic install of what you're going to see, and this week is more the emotional side builds?
Yeah, and mental and emotional. Where they're really focused, and they're really locked in, and so you have some precision in your calls. But in an opening game, they've got a new offensive coordinator. We don't know what changes they're going to make, and so I think in an opening game, while you have some idea about personnel and some of their thought processes and ideas in all three phases, the reality of it is in first ball games, you better be ready for everything. I know that certainly we're a much different looking football team than what we were last year in all three phases.
Yeah.
And so, the first ball game, until you have some video to start watching it this year, that's why I've always been an advocate. We need a preseason game. I never was in favor of the 12th game. I want to have 11 games and have a preseason game just to get some ideas, and one that didn't count, because I think it's the only entity out there that doesn't have that availability. I think every other sport does, and so the first game's a tough one. You have to do a lot of sideline adjustments, and you're having to do it generally with young kids that maybe haven't played before.
Yeah. Now, on the injury front, you mentioned being relatively healthy. Just kind of looking at the depth chart and everything. You're going to be without Hunter Kissinger this weekend.
That's correct. Yeah, Hunter had a surgery during preseason camp early on. It was non-football related, and we hope to have him back pretty soon. The next week, the week after that.
Okay. As far as Alec Osborne and Daniel Fitzwater go, they're done for the year.
That's correct. Yeah, okay. Daniel was probably going to redshirt. Obviously, Alec and Tyler Kane both had lower body injuries that's going to keep them out. Too bad for Alec, because Alec was really having a good fall camp, and so we're fortunate that we have Harley Sino with a guy that's played an awful lot there at tight end, and Stoney Hawkins is back healthy and coming around now.
All right, well, I'll see you tomorrow. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Adam. We're running a little short on time here, but we have time for just one more question. It comes from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Caller, please identify yourself and go ahead.
Hey, David Pascal up here at the Chattanooga Times Free Press. Coach, I was curious. I know you've been there long enough to have an impact in your scheduling today. What is your philosophy on scheduling when you look at the fact that you guys went to LSU, Kentucky, and Texas A&M last year, and that you've got Georgia and Alabama within the first month of the season this year?
Yeah, as I kind of joked there at the Sunbelt Media Days, I don't understand why I don't get invited to the Southeastern Conference Media Day to begin the season. It is what it is. I mean, I don't really have that much control over scheduling here, because we're going to take the highest paycheck because we need the money, and that's the way it is. And kind of knew that kind of coming into it. We're not funded very well, as has been pretty well documented, and so we need those checks. And generally, the people that tend to pay the most money are the ones that can't get games. And for Georgia and Alabama both, or Oklahoma or Texas A&M or whoever, the Florida State and TCU and I would go on, all the ones that we've played here in the past, they tend to pay the most money, and so you don't really have that much control over your scheduling, because they pay the most money. You're going to play them whenever they tell you to play, and so consequently, our schedule's never been necessarily set up for success out of conference. It's been basically dedicated to trying to get as much money as you can. And so thusly, I am talking to Tennessee, because Tennessee should pay well, because I used to coach there, and they sell them tickets. So we're looking at Tennessee sometime we're down the road, too.
Thank you.
All right, David.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Coach, for your time. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Before we stand by, we'll have Mark Hudspeth, if you will, lock it in shortly. Please stand by.
You are now